Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel and thanks for logging on. If you enjoyed these videos, do me a favor and subscribe to our YouTube channel right here at Watchbox Reviews. I would really appreciate it and I promise to update daily. If you love this watch, you can see it and you can purchase it on our website, thewatchbox.com. And today we are discussing a model released in 2017. This wasn't the hardcore 62 MAS re-edition of that year. It has some accents of that historic Seiko Diver, but this one is more a resolutely modern Prospex. The Prospex Diver SPB051. 42.6 millimeters in dia-shield hardened stainless steel. The watch wears easily on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist. It's not excessively thick. For an aggressive dive watch, 14 millimeters is quite reasonable. And you can see from lug to lug, it's not quite as big as many of the 44, 45s built by Seiko and Grand Seiko for diving purposes. This one's 49.8 lug to lug, so if you want to wear it on a strap, that's the operative measurement. And if you want to wear it on the bracelet, as seen here, then the end link to end link span across the wrist is a meteor 54.7, but it's still viable. I can recommend the watch on the bracelet as is for wrists as small as 15 centimeters circumference. The spacing between the lugs is a very standard 20 millimeters, so you will have a world of OEM strap and aftermarket options if you want to dress the watch up or dress the watch down in a more traditional fashion. The clasp and the bracelet are high-grade pieces. As you can see, the clasp features both a clamshell lock and a trigger system. So if you get really close and you dig into the details, you can see there is the trigger release system, but then there's also a clamshell. So a bit like Rolex with its lift lock and its clamshell, this is a double locked clasp. You can also see that there is a pull-out dive extension. It actually has a little bit of free play. You lock it back into place thusly, and so you wind up getting about 12 to 15 millimeters of extension when you extend the fold out. Now if we jump a little back, you can see that there's fine sizing available by means of an anchoring adjustment inside the clasp. So you can use your strap tool to change the anchoring of the links inside of the clasp. You'll also note that this is a Seiko bracelet, so of course we're not looking at screws here, we're looking at pin sleeves, but the links themselves are very, very, very solid. You can see that they're nicely faceted, both polished and satin finish, and that geometric inward facing gives it a distinct look from the Rolex Oyster, the three-link steel design that kind of dominates the sports scene. This is anything but a knockoff of the Oyster. It's a nice original, attractive, and slightly mechanized look that seems appropriate to Seiko. I like those sharp inward faces. And you can see that the case itself isn't quite the Zaratsu polish that you get on a Grand Seiko Diver, but what it does have is dia-shield hardening. Now, this isn't going to save you from dents or divots if you knock it against a doorknob, but what it will do is reduce the number of scratches, scuffs, and swirls on the facing of the metal. And it is a nicely executed case. You can see it has a set of compound curves and differential beveling, satin and polish that sets it apart from the rather graceless supercase sheer profile of a modern Rolex diver. So though the watch doesn't necessarily have the same degree of spec as a Rolex, it is a more beautiful case execution. It's got a little bit of vintage flair. Again, this is not the 62 MAS tribute, but it has some of that watch's elemental dive watch cool baked into it. The bezel is very smooth. I went off camera so you could hear the ratchet action. It feels precise. It is creamy. It's almost like a Rolex. This is probably the part of the watch that feels and operates more like a Rolex than any other component. There's an ADLC inlay, so it's amorphous diamond like carbon. It's not going to fracture or shatter like ceramic will, but it's not quite as hard as ceramic against errant blows. The good news is you can never knock the bezel insert out of the bezel. There is a nice luminescent pearl that you can align with the minute hand, and now you've got an impromptu 0 to 60 minute timer. I always like to highlight that when you have a dive bezel, you really don't need a chronograph. Most things I time are between 1 and 60 minutes, and you'll never have the downstream maintenance costs of a complicated chronograph when you're accomplishing the same thing with the dive bezel. There's a flange outboard that slopes down from the bezel to the base. Applique indices, an impressive refinement in a watch in this price point. A matte base, so you have high contrast of the indices and hands against the base. You also have glare resistance. It is sapphire. At this price point, you're getting sapphire. It's not hard Lex or some sort of mineral composition. And then underneath the case back is a Seiko manufacturer caliber 6R15 automatic, 50-hour power reserve, 21.6 beat rate, 200 meters water resistant. It has both stop seconds function and a quick set date. So this watch is one of the best elemental, I might even say one of the best true blue-collar divers. If you want to go toe-to-toe with something like a Tudor Black Bay or a Pelagos or an Oris Aquas, this is the watch for the job. I would even go so far as to say that the Seiko SPB051 might even have a leg or a lug up on that competition. You can see this one and make it yours on the watch box.